Good evening, everyone, and we extend you our very warm greetings on behalf of Modern School family. And it is a matter of great privilege that we have a very esteemed guest here. She's one of a very prominent keynote speaker, and Modern School has always stood by its students, parents, and patrons in terms of providing for academic and non-academic needs. We are really delighted to introduce Ms. Nida Mehdi Khan, a renowned mental health therapist and counselor. She's based in Michigan, USA, and as a faculty for Baker College and Concordia University. She has provided amazing work and she has given exemplary services to the vulnerable children. And her dynamic approach lends an affable touch to the children's interaction with her. And she's here to help you all deal with the stress management issues. And she will be addressing this session for your students and for our parents as well. Please feel free to share your queries once she's done with the session. Leave your queries in the chat box for her to address them. And yes, we welcome you, Ms. Nida, and over to you now.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I know that it is later in the evening for you guys. It's actually really early morning for me. It's 7:30 a.m. here in Michigan. And let me introduce myself. As Dharna said, my name is Nida Khan, and I live in Michigan, United States. And just a little bit about myself. I actually grew up in the Middle East when I was really young. My dad was working in the Middle East as an engineer, and then from there we moved to Canada. So I did most of my high school years and my undergrad, which is my bachelor's degree in Canada. And then we had moved to Michigan and I did my master's degree in the United States in counseling. So my bachelor's degree is in psychology and my master's degree is in counseling. And I'm also licensed with the state of Michigan to provide mental health services, basically to be a counselor is what we call here, which is what the title says, but I can also do social work as well as counseling, and basically I have my own private practice in one of the cities over here, and I've been seeing clients on my own for about a year for depression and anxiety, along with various age ranges. I would say I have the youngest that I have helped maybe about 16 to 65, 70-year-olds. And so I work with adults as well as kids, and depression, anxiety, a lot of bipolar disorder. I've also had opportunity to work with individuals diagnosed with schizophrenia and just regular other types of daily life struggles. And then I also work for the government here, along with the government here in my city. And then I teach college, which is actually one of my most passionate things, is teaching college. And I've been teaching for about 10 years now. I teach psychology, sociology, anthropology classes. One of the classes that's actually my personal favorite to teach here to my students is cultural diversity and cultural competence. That's a huge topic right now in America as well as world over. Just trying to learn how to deal with individuals or who come from different cultures and backgrounds is really huge. So that's something I work with a lot. And I also teach a lot of social work classes. The last class that I was teaching last semester was the cognitive behavioral therapy, or as we call it, CBT. So that's a little bit about my background. And I've been working for about, gosh, I want to say about 12 years, 12, 13 years in this field in America. So it has been very interesting and very fruitful in many ways. I just want to make sure that my sound is okay before I go actually dive into the actual topic at hand. The
Yes,
sound
ma'am.
is good.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting thumbs up from a few people. So thank you for letting me know. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you have any questions about anything I say or general questions, please go ahead and write them in the chat box. And then Tarna is going to let me know at the end. We've allocated some time for questions and answers. So she will let me know the questions at that time, and I will try to answer them the best to my ability. And I just want to give you guys a disclaimer. If I look a little weird, that's because my camera is at the bottom of my screen. And I'm always used to having cameras at the top, but this new laptop has the camera at the bottom. So I'm always like confused. I always look at it at the top, but then I realize I got to look at the bottom. So if I look like I'm possessed, I'm not possessed. I swear. I'm just trying to, make sure that you guys can have this eye-to-eye connection with me. Okay, so let's get started. So the topic that I was given was stress management, and stress management really varies for every individual, right? Because first of all, we got to understand that what exactly is stress. So I have notes. If I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. So I did some homework. I wanted to make sure that I'm giving you as accurate information as possible. So what exactly is stress? Stress is a state of tension, and everyone looks at tension or experiences tension differently, right? You have some people who are able to breeze through life in many difficult situations, and you would look at them and almost be in awe, like, wow, like they're going through all this stuff, but they seem like they're handling it really well. And then you have individuals who are going through minor things, and that they would seem minor to us, and yet their reaction to that stress is so dramatic and so severe that it's almost like, wow, like they're really not handling this well. So why is that some people are able to handle it so well and then others are not? And before we even dive into that type of situations, what I want to talk about is what exactly is stress. So it's a state of tension. It's caused by internal as well as external factors. So what are some of those internal factors? The internal sources of stress come from within us, right? So it could be pressure that we put on ourselves, which is really huge. Specifically, I would say for students, and specifically, I would say that they see students put a lot of stress on themselves because education is very important in our culture, correct? It's a lot of stress that's put onto us from our families as well and the environment, but it's also a lot of stress that we put on ourselves to ensure that we get a certain grade point or a certain percentage. Over here we have GPA, but I think over there it might be percentage or numbers. I'm not actually sure, but so there's a lot of pressure on getting good grades. Also, there's these personal standards that we've set up for ourselves, our beliefs, our goals, our needs, as well as our wants. These factors are what are internal factors of stress. And then you have external factors of stress. External factors of stress, a lot of times are factors that are beyond our control, correct? So that could be finances, that could also be our family situation, our school situation, work, if we're working as well as going to school. Some of us do. It's actually very common in America for students to work part-time jobs as well, go to school. I had a part-time job all through university as well as high school. And then when I was in grad school, which is getting my master's, I also worked full-time and I took night classes for my master's. So, if you have that work-life balance and you work-school balance, so that can be very stressful because that has its own implications. So now that we understand that you have internal factors and external factors, what I want to talk about is that there's actually two types of stress. There's positive stress and then there's negative stress. Now, positive stress is really interesting because positive stress is almost like the butterflies you feel when you're really excited, the butterflies in your stomach, and the little excitement that you feel when you're about to do something really fun, or you're going somewhere really exciting, or that you're going on a vacation holiday with your family that you've really been looking forward to, or you're, I don't know, going to a concert. That's a little excitement that you get these butterflies. That's positive stress. Also, another positive stress that we feel is, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to it, is exam time. When you are about to take your exams or tests, you feel this like internal stress. You're a little nervous, but it's actually good stress, because that is what propels you to study and be prepared. And then when you're taking the test, you're nervous, but you're still able to get it done. So those are all good forms of stress. Those are the type of stresses we need in our lives, because they make life exciting. On the other hand, then we have negative types of stress. And the negative stress is what causes us to worry a lot. And worrying is a #1 byproduct of stress worldwide. And then it can also cause you to get angry, scared, frustrated. Another thing, a negative form of stress is being bullied, and having any type of family problems, financial problems, or a recent move even. A lot of times we don't really, in our community especially, that's something I've noticed parents don't really sometimes focus on. But even moves, like moving to a new home or moving to a new school, can be very traumatic and stressful for students, because it's a new environment. They have to make new friends, get to acclimate themselves to the new school environment, to the new teachers and everything. So that can be very stressful as well. So those are the two types of stresses, the positives and the negatives. And again, I just want to mention, guys, if you have any questions or comments, please make sure that you write them in the chat box. And I believe there were a number provided to you guys as well. Go ahead and send your questions over there. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is signs and symptoms of stress. But before we dive into it, I want to make sure that everyone understands what signs and symptoms are, because they're actually different. And a lot of times we don't even understand. So in mental health, when I do mental health trainings, I'm actually certified in this curriculum known as mental health first aid. It's a curriculum out of Australia, and it became really popular in the United States, I want to say about 6-7 years ago. And I'm a certified trainer in that, and we do mental health trainings for all sorts of populations, specifically for populations that are not in the mental health field, like myself. We train teachers, police officers, school bus drivers. We have lunchroom attendants over here in the United States. So during lunchtime in elementary school, grade school, or high school, there's attendants who are in the lunchrooms to supervise, make sure everything's going smoothly. We do these trainings for those individuals as well, and any other type of staff that is in high schools. And this training basically talks about, when someone is, let's say, choking, people usually know CPR. They know first aid and CPR, and they know what to do if someone's choking, or someone's out of breath, right? In the United States, we will call 911 or do the Heimlich maneuver. Whereas when someone is having a mental health issue, people usually don't know what to say. It's actually nerve-wracking for individuals. Like, how do you even approach someone who we think may be depressed or sad or is having anxiety? What do you say to a person like that? What do you not say to a person like that? So that can be very confusing. And it's a huge taboo. Mental health is a huge taboo in the United States, as well as in the rest of the world. So because of that, this training, mental health first aid, was developed. And the idea behind the training is that, we are so, as humans, we are so eager to help others. If someone has a broken leg and they're trying to, like, they're on crutches and they're trying to move, and we'll open doors for them and we'll be like, hey, do you need any help? Can we help you? But if someone's having issues with their mind, people don't know what to say. People don't know how to act or react to something like that. And so what we teach is how to look at the signs and symptoms of what mental health is. So the signs would be things that we see. So if I am depressed, let's say I start crying, that would be a sign, because you can see visibly with your eyes that something is wrong with me. Correct? A symptom is something that is inside. So a symptom would be the emotion that a depressed person feels on the inside. So feelings of sadness would be a symptom, because that's something I feel on the inside. You cannot tell that I'm depressed, because that's something I'm feeling. But when I display that sadness in the form of crying, that's a sign to you that something is obviously wrong with me. So that's the difference between what a sign is and what a symptom is of mental health and what on sadness. And I actually want to break these down for you, because I want to give you an idea that, we think of mental health and we think of, oh, usually we have a lot of labels. In Hindi we will say, like, ye to pagal hai, and all these types of phrases, which is really not always appropriate or helpful, because just because you're having mental health issues does not automatically classify you as someone who's crazy. Anyone can have these symptoms, and actually, as a human, everyone feels these symptoms at some point in time in their life. You have good days and you have bad days. Not everyone is happy 24/7. You are going to have a day when you're just a little sad, or you're not feeling your fully optimistic self. So understanding that stress can cause physiological symptoms. And this is something that gets really tricky, because we have a lot of times people will go to the doctor here in America, and I'm sure it happens in India as well. They'll go to the doctor and they'll be like, oh, I'm having these chest pains and I could be having a heart attack, or I think there's something wrong with my heart, or, there's something wrong with my legs, lungs, or whatever. And you get all these tests done, and then the tests come out clear and the doctor's like, no, everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And you go home, but you're still like, okay, something is wrong, but I just don't know what it is. Doctors can't find out what's wrong with me. Well, in those circumstances, what we talk about is that is what stress is. Stress can cause physiological symptoms, which means that your body ends up reacting to stress, and it almost imitates that you're having physical issues, but in actuality, they're not. They're just symptoms of the stress, because you've let the stress go for so long that it ends up hurting you physically. So some of the physiological symptoms of stress are headaches, trouble sleeping, muscle pain, digestive issues. Actually, stress affects your digestive tract first. So the first thing you will notice is having stomach aches, or that you're not able to eat, or if you're stressed, you're eating too much. High blood pressure. These are some of the signs, symptoms of physiological symptoms of stress. And then you have emotional symptoms, and these are symptoms that we're probably as a society much more aware of. And these could be, having a little bit of the moodiness, having a little bit of the restlessness, irritability. Anyone says anything to you, you will probably, get really angry and start fighting with them, or yelling, having fights with siblings at home, or even having arguments with parents, or getting upset at the littlest things said to you by siblings or parents or family members or even friends. Just having a sense of sadness, depression, anxiety, and also having this intense feeling that you can't get things done. So these are some emotional symptoms of what is stress. Okay. And then other signs of stress can be panic attacks. Now, a lot of people ask me, like, what is the difference between anxiety and a panic attack? Anxiety is this feeling that, you know, something is wrong and it makes you worry a lot and you're constantly worrying. Panic attack is when you almost have this feeling where your heart sinks, you start getting palpitations, you start sweating a lot, your hands may get sweaty, your legs feel like they're jelly and you can't stand. And then you may even start throwing up. Sometimes people start getting rashes, they might get a fever, and your heart is racing, beating really, really fast, and you might literally think you're having a heart attack. Those are symptoms of, you know, almost like, but you're not having a heart attack. That is a panic attack. You will know. But the tension that builds up to that stage is what anxiety is. So there's a little difference between what is actually a panic attack and what is actually anxiety. So I want to talk a little bit about the internal chatter. Now, the internal chatter is the conversations we have with ourselves. Do you guys know that we have, as humans, over 1 million thoughts a day? Now, I personally never thought that I think that much. Like, I do think that much, but I never really thought that I thought that much, you know? So, and you'd be surprised because you're like, well, I don't really think that much, but we do, because we're constantly talking to ourselves and we're always, you know, reminding ourselves of things. And, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you wake up? Did you text this person? Did you call that person? Did you finish your homework? Did you finish that assignment? Did you do this? Like, all these things. Or you're even asking yourself questions like, hey, like, you know, I have to go to this party. What should I wear? Should I wear this color? Should I wear that color? What should I get my friend for their birthday? You're constantly having these conversations with yourselves. And that's what we call internal chatter. And the internal chatter is a huge factor on how you handle stress, because how you talk to yourself and what you say to yourself is very important. Because when you're depressed or sad, and if your internal chatter ends up being negative, that can really be a catalyst in spiraling you downwards. But when the internal chatter is positive, even when you're having a bad day, that will really skyrocket you to a more positive aspect. So it's really important controlling our thoughts. And you've probably heard of this already, but controlling your thoughts is very important, and making sure that you're having the correct type of thoughts for whatever task and goals you have is very important. So internal chatter can cause huge stress because it comes from negative thoughts, and it comes from negative experiences, right? If something bad happens to us, let's say, and then, you know, we have a bad experience with a certain person, and, you know, you decide to forgive them, and you're like, okay, I'm going to give this person another chance. And while you're trying to be friends with this person again, your internal chatter is constantly reminding you, well, remember what they did to you, and remember how you felt about this, and should you really trust this person? That internal chatter is almost hindering you from having this friendship with this person, because you're not allowing yourself to really forgive them, and you're not allowing yourself to really develop that friendship further. So internal chatter is really, really, really important. If we really let this internal chatter, it can be a quite destruction almost, and leads us to living a very highly stressed life, where we are anxious all the time in our lives, and that's not a good feeling and a good state to be at. So controlling your thoughts is very, very important. And to be honest with you, you know, that's something I struggled with when I was younger, because when you're younger, you're not as mature at times, and you really don't really look at the bigger picture of things. As when we're younger, we also tend to be very egocentric. And what that means is that we really think that the world somehow revolves around us. So we get really focused on just our issues, our feelings, our emotions, and we really don't think about the bigger picture sometimes. And that can also cause extra stress upon ourselves. So being really mindful of the internal chatter is really important. And if it's not dealt with, it can lead to mental, physical, as well as emotional and even spiritual stress, to be honest with you guys. So now what I want to do is actually go over, am I doing okay with time? Yeah, I think I am. I just want to make sure I'm doing okay with time. Because,
Yes, ma'am. It's good.
okay. So I want to go over 7 techniques actually that I wrote down. I was really brainstorming and I came up and I did some research. So there's about 7 techniques that we use when I work with my clients on how to manage stress. So there's a lot of coping mechanisms, and what coping mechanisms basically means is that you are looking at your breathing exercises. You can journal, you can do music therapy, listen to, whatever music you like to alleviate the stress. Journal writing is really good because you're really giving your emotions an escape. There's a new trend in America right now, and what they're doing is they're doing journal writings, and then what they do is they'll tear the pages and they'll burn them. So basically the whole idea is that everything that was in your head that was giving you stress, you put it down on a piece of paper and you let it all come out. And once that it was out, you basically burned it, because now you're saying goodbye to all of those emotions and you're saying that, okay, I'm done with this. I've got the closure and I can move on to more a positive note. So that's something that's happening as well. A lot of teenagers are doing that nowadays. So I have some techniques that I want to give you guys, because what I want you guys to have is a toolbox. So when you are feeling stressed, you can, come back to these tips in your toolbox and then use these to hopefully manage your stress. So the first thing is that what I want you to do is write down a list, which would be like 5 benefits that you will achieve when you have your stress under control. And these 5 benefits will basically become your incentives to motivate you to take an action. And that's really important. I'm the type of person who always makes lists. Anytime I'm trying to make a decision, I always make a pro or con list. Like, these are the positives of making this decision, and these are the negatives of making these decisions. And then I always look at which outweighs the other. If the positives outweigh, then, I know for sure that this is a calculated good decision for myself. And then if the cons outweigh, then I know that this is an educated and calculated, not so much of a good decision for myself. So that takes a lot of stress out, because you're looking at facts, you're looking at the information right in front of you. The second thing I want you guys to think about is get to know who you are. And this can be tricky because, when we're growing, we change a lot. The person I was in my teens was not the person I was in my 20s, and the person I was in my 20s is not the person, I am in my 30s. So it's like, you really change, and so on and so forth. And that is how it's supposed to be. You grow, you learn, you mature, and you change. So the most important thing is getting to really know yourself and understand yourself, and giving yourself some slack. And that's really huge, because I think that in our culture, especially in the Desi culture, there's so much, like we talked about, internal and external pressure on us to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to make sure we make our parents proud, make our families proud, make ourselves proud, that we sometimes forget what our really true desires are. So it's really important to spending time with yourself and really learning what your personality is, what your likes are, and what are the things that bring you happiness, and what are the things that bring you joy. and what are the things that do not bring you happiness, and then try to focus on those things that do bring you happiness, and also focusing on your strengths. You know, a lot of times professionally, and this can be really tricky, honestly, now that I think about it, when you're 16, 17, you in the United States, you basically have to make this decision of what career I'm going to pick. And think about it, when you're that young, I mean, if you pick the right profession, then that's really amazing. But for a lot of people, it is really stressful, because that big decision for the rest of your life is on these tiny shoulders of when you're like 15, 16, 17, that, you know, pick a career that this is what you are going to do for the rest of your life. And it is daunting. Like, how do you make that decision? How do you know which field is right for you? And I know you guys have had some interesting sessions, and I believe that there was a session that was done by someone, I forget the name of the lady, who talked about this, you know, how to make the correct career choices. But it is really stressful. You know, if I could have had my way, honestly, I would have been an interior designer, because that's what I really wanted to do. But my dad was like, nope, no way. There is no way you're doing this. You have to become a doctor. And I remember when I was young, we were having this huge argument, because my dad was just like, nope, you have to become a doctor. You have to become a doctor. And I was just like, I don't know if I can really survive being a doctor. And the honest truth is, because I sucked at math, and I knew I was going to fail math. So it's like, I can never be a doctor because I'm not good at math, and I will never be good at chemistry. But, you know, I knew I was really interested in psychology. So I was like, okay, I'll meet my dad halfway. So we had a huge discussion, and I was like, okay, how about this? This is something I'm interested in. And because he wanted me to go to university, and the program that I wanted to go for interior design was at a college. And he's like, no, I want you to go attend a university, not go to a college. So I was like, okay. So that's kind of like we met halfway, you know. So sometimes we have these pressures from our families, because they want us to pick certain careers. So it can be very daunting. But I really want you to try to find out who you are and what your strengths are, and build on those strengths. Because if you look at people who are happy in life, are people who are in their careers that it doesn't seem like a job. It really seems like that they're, you know, having fun every single day. So it's very important to pick a career that makes you happy, because that will alleviate a lot of stress. And when you're striving for perfection and comparing yourself to others, that can be very stressful. And I know that in this day and age, especially with social media, you have all these apps that have become famous worldwide, you know, Instagram and YouTube and Snapchat, and I don't even know all the other apps that a lot of the younger kids use these days. And it's like, it's really a lot, because it puts a lot of pressure on you to be a certain way, to act a certain way. You know, who has these designer clothes, who has these these fancy cars, this fancy lifestyle, and it puts a lot of pressure on you on trying to be this person that you may not be, or may not be financially able to be. And we see a lot of kids having a lot of issues with that. So just understanding that, you know, being happy with who you are and accepting who you are and what you are is really, really important, and working hard to attaining those dreams are good. The third point I want to talk about, which you probably already know, is exercising, taking walks, eating right, sleeping. Those are huge factors in stress. If you're not sleeping enough, or if you're not regularly exercising, or you know, taking care of yourself that way, that can cause a lot of stress as well. The other thing is relaxation techniques. And with that, I want to say, you know, any type of meditation. So right now in America, yoga has become a huge thing. Meditation has become a huge, huge thing. And, you know, you guys have all the information, resources for meditation and yoga in India. So, you know, definitely utilize all of those. I know that Modern School also did Tai Chi sessions with you guys, and Tai Chi is excellent. We have Tai Chi available at our community centers over here. So we refer a lot of our clients to go take Tai Chi as well as a form of relaxation and stress management. The other thing is committing yourself to spending time with people who bring you joy. So, having time, what happens is when we're stressed or we're sad or depressed, we will shut down and we will not meet with people, our friends or family members, and start like really being elusive. So that is something I don't want you guys to do. If you're feeling sad and depressed, making sure that you are talking to people and spending time with your friends and people that bring you joy and happiness. And that's really important. And in the United States, pets is a huge thing as well. If you have pets that you are really close to, making sure that you're spending time with your pets as well, because that can bring you joy as well and build resilience. Now, resilience is something that is a topic that I'm very interested in. And to be honest with you, I can literally talk about resilience for like hours and hours and hours. And what does resilience actually mean? So resilience basically means is, are you the type of person who looks at life as glass half full or glass half empty? And basically what it means is that, are you the type who's going to look at life and be like, a situation happened that may be negative, and you're like, doom and gloom. It's like the world is ending. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Are you the type of person who thinks of situations like that? Or you're the type of person who's more happy-go-lucky? They're like, oh, this happened, but it's okay. I'll manage, or, God will help me, or whatever. You have more of a positive outlook. So that's what we call a glass half full or a glass half empty. Which type of person are you? If you are a glass half full type of person, that means that you're more resilient, and that means that when you have situations or problems in your life, that you'll be able to really work through them and bounce back much more quicker and much more easily. But if you're a glass half empty type of a person, that what's going to happen is that you're going to be always looking at things more pessimistically. And when a situation or a crisis occurs, it's going to be harder for you to bounce back from that. It's going to take you a really long time to being stuck in that situation. And that is what resilience is. That if something bad happens, it puts you down for maybe a day or two, and then you start feeling okay, and then you go back to being your usual self? Or are you the type of person that something happens and then you stay in that state of depression and sadness for a very, very long time? And if you stay in that phase of sadness for a very long time, then that is when we would say, okay, now this is something that is serious, and this is something that's we would consider like a mental health crisis, and that's when you would go and get help. So the other thing is being grateful, and it's like not really like a new age thing. It's more like a really good thing that you really need to be grateful about stuff all the time. Having a gratitude journal is really huge. Even if you don't do a gratitude journal, you could do sticky notes, just writing down like for that, either for that day or for that week, what you're grateful for, what you're happy about, what's going well in your life. And that's especially important in this COVID-19 season, because we all feel very frustrated, but it's almost calming to know that this is something that we're all going through world over. This is not something I'm only dealing with. Everyone in the world is feeling the ramifications of COVID-19. I've been in lockdown here since March 15th in America, and currently we've had a huge number. We've probably had the most people affected with COVID right now. But I recently heard India got a surge in numbers as well for positive. So I know that it can be very depressing. So, in times like this, it's even more important to keep like a gratitude journal or a gratitude daily log of things that you're grateful for, and it could be simple things like having a meal, having a home, being safe, being healthy, things like that. It's really important because that keeps you optimistic and looks at more or having a more purposeful life. Yeah, and on a whole. And then the last thing is just like, making a commitment to making a change if you are depressed or sad or stressed, and sticking to the plan and action plan. And that's really important, because a lot of times what happens is that we will make decisions and we'll make plans, but we don't follow through with it, right? What's really common is that, every time New Year starts, people will take gym memberships and be like, okay, I'm gonna really work hard and become the best version of myself, this, that, and whatever. And then, after when February hits, you just kind of stop going to the gym, and then you're paying for this membership, but you're not really going, and you're wasting money. So those type of things ends up happening because we make decisions, we set goals, but as human nature takes over, we sometimes may not follow through. So it's really important to making sure that you're following through with whatever steps you decide to take. So I think with that, I'm done with the basic information I wanted to share with you about what is stress, the internal factors, external factors, the symptoms and the signs, and what can be done, which is more of a general thing, because to be honest, this can take hours and hours of time. So I want to open up to questions now, or comments. So if you want to let me know each question, and I'll try to answer it as quickly as possible.
So, ma'am, thank you so much. That has been a very, informing session. And the first query that has come to us is from Mr. Arun Kumawat from Jaipur. He has sending you the question that in Corona lockdown period, the children are staying at home and they are not doing physical activity, and they are completely immersed in using mobile phones these days. So what kind of side effects that can pose on their mental well-being, and physically, how can they adversely affect them, and if there's any kind of solution to this possibility, what it can be?
So the thing is that, to be honest with you, thank you for your question, but I think that's a huge issue that parents deal with, even the United States, and I think world over. Technology has become such a huge factor in our lives. iPads, smartphones. You have young kids that are able to maneuver these technologies that didn't even exist when I was a kid. So parents have a huge issue with trying to make sure that there's a balance. So I think that technology is important. Technology is good because it is the what is the future. So you want to make sure that kids are having time in technology, but what you really want to do is limit the time. And I think that how much time a person has on technology, which would be your iPads, video games, cell phones, whatever, if it's not related to schoolwork, if it's just to play video games or chatting or whatever else, then I think it should really be managed by parents, and it should really be reflective of their age. If anyone's under 10, or you can maybe have an hour. If anyone's like a teenager, maybe, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know, whatever best fits your family. The other thing is, yes, technology does have an adverse effect on mental health as well as just your brain development, because there've been a lot of studies that, when you're just sitting there and watching TV, which is kind of similar to a cell phone screen or an iPad computer screen, that you're really not using your brain cells, and your brain cells are not really being energized and activated. So the best thing to do for your brain is actually reading a book. So yeah, you do want to engage in, all of those technologies, but at the same time, make sure that you're giving your brain the activity that it needs through human interaction as well as reading books. Because human interaction is another thing. Social issues are happening a lot as well. Kids nowadays are spending so much time on these technologies that they're really not understanding how to socialize with each other. You would have kids sitting next to each other, and they'd rather text each other than actually have a conversation. So I think I hope I answered your question. So yeah, it can have a negative effect. You really want to limit limit it, and you want to make sure that kids are, you know, even with COVID, I don't know, like over here, yeah, we're in lockdown, but you're still allowed to take walks in your neighborhoods. We still have parks that are open. You're still maintaining the 6 feet of distance, but you can go to parks and have walks in the evening when it gets cooler, because right now it's kind of hot here. So that's really important to have time for physical activity as well.
Thank you so much for that answer, ma'am. And the other question that has come to us is from Miss Ankita Sharma. She is asking a very interesting question, in fact, that what are the major factors that are needed to create a healthy atmosphere at home for children?
Ooh, that's a wonderful question, actually. And I think that, again, I think it really depends on each family, their resources, and their capabilities. But I think what's really important is not the things you buy your kids. The most important thing for kids, honestly, is the time parents spend with their children, which may not seem a lot. And I know in our Desi culture, I know growing up, that's not something my parents even did a lot, because they just didn't know. But now, fortunately, you know, the dynamics are really different. I spend a lot of time with my parents, and that's the best for me, having conversations with my parents about every topic under the sun. So I think it's really important, and I wish that we could have had that chance when I was younger. So I think the best environment you can create at home is making sure that kids feel that parents are approachable, that parents are someone, you know, that they're a parent, but also they're also their well-wisher and their friend, but not like too friendly, but, you know, having a good balance, that kids feel that they can come to their parents with any type of problem or issue. That's, I think, is the most important thing, and most important type of environment that you can create in your home. If you're constantly scared, you know, that you're going to make your parents angry or disappointed, that puts a lot of pressure on the child. So making sure that the environment is friendly and open, so that kids can ask questions and not feel ashamed about asking questions, and kids can be themselves, you know. There's a lot of cultural nuances that we don't even think about. So keeping mindful of that, that you're not using the cultural nuances to stunt your child's emotional growth. You know, obviously, you know, sometimes gender roles also plays an issue with that too. So making sure that you're you know, treating kids equally, girls or boys, either way, have the same opportunities. That's really important, and I think that's the best environment for kids, apart from, you know, having a roof over the top of their head and getting food and all that. Having that emotional connection with parents, I think, is the most important thing.
Right, ma'am. And another extension to this question is very interesting, and I think you would really like to take this up. That is how to increase the decision-making power of oneself.
I think that question can have so many answers. And I think, you know, part of what I talked about, you know, using those strategies in your toolbox can really help you make the right decision. And the best decision for you is going to be, I think, your gut reaction to a situation and a gut reaction to a question. You know, when you need to make a decision, always go with your gut. And how do you really know what is your gut reaction? Your gut reaction is usually the first thing that pops into your head. But I like to make educated decisions, and I like to make, you know, solid factual decisions. So I am the type of person that goes with lists. I always make a list of pros and cons of how this would be a good decision for myself and how this would be a bad decision for myself. And then I base it off of that. It's also very important to look at is how happy will you be with the decision in the next year or the next 5 years? You know, is this decision going to impact you long term or short term? I think that's really also very important, because a lot of times we make decisions based on now, and we don't think about how that decision will impact us in the future later on. So also looking at how whatever decision I make, what is going to be the outcome in the next 5 years or the next year. And I think basing your decision off of that. And looking at your own happiness, are you going to be able to live with yourself based in whatever decision you make? And if so, that's the decision you should really focus on, because at the end of the day, it's just you, and you have to see how it's going to affect your mental health and your physical health.
Right, ma'am. That was a very interesting answer, and I'm sure the parents and students and the staff who's attending the session right now, they must be benefiting with these wise
I
inputs
hope
that
so.
you have given.
I hope so. I can't see any faces, but I hope that they are.
But ma'am, yes, they are there, and they are very much appreciating your session because we are receiving a rave review about it. So
Oh,
ma'am, the another
awesome. Thank you.
question that we have is from Pragya Tripathi, and she's asking that how can one make children obedient without offending them?
I'm laughing because I'm sure my mother would love to answer this question. These type of questions are always tricky because I don't have any kids. So how do you make children obedient? And I think what you really need to look at is that, what exactly do you want? What exactly is obedience? I think my ideology of obedience is a little different because, I, as a parent, whenever I do become a parent, my idea is not to have, I don't want to be like a military style parent. I don't want to force my children into making decisions, but obviously I want my children to make the best decisions for themselves. So I think that with obedience, what you really want to do is, the best thing is coming to a consensual agreement. And how you do that is having open communication. Because if you want, let's say, your child to do a certain thing and the child is being resistant, ask your child what the resistance is, why there is resistance, what's the cause for it, what's the reason, what is stopping your child from doing what you're asking them to do, and then take their answers and really, ponder upon them. Are they justifiable reasons why your child is saying that they don't want to be obedient to you for whatever that particular thing is? You really have to do a give or take. I think that old school parenting that we used to have back in the day when my grandparents used to be younger, that this is what your parents are saying and this is what you have to agree with. To be honest with you, that doesn't really work right now anymore, because kids are much more aware of their environment and the world than I even used to be, and then how my parents used to be or how my grandparents used to be. So the world has changed. Right now, you can tell your kids what to do, but you also want to take their opinion. And if it's something like, that you're really getting pushback from, I think it's important to understand why the pushback is coming, what can be done. And if it's something that you are able to meet the child halfway, let them meet them halfway. Because here's the thing. Do you want your child to be a person who moves on in life, listening to their boss, then listening to their husband or wife, and then listening to their kids, like all their life listening to others? Or you want your child to be an independent person who's independent and is able to make decisions for themselves and is able to advocate for themselves and is able to stand up in life and for themselves, So you really want to look at that. So I think, I'm so sorry if I'm not really giving you the answer that maybe you wanted to hear, but I think that, it's really important to have open communication and understanding why the resistance is coming and where the resistance is coming from, because usually there could be a valid reason. If there isn't a valid reason, then you let the child know that, listen, this is not the type of situation where you have a choice, but in future, when there are things that you could have a choice, we can discuss that. So leaving that open and giving children the option to make choices is also really important, because that is only going to teach them how to make choices for themselves in the future.
Right, ma'am. That was an interesting answer to the interesting question. So I'll quickly round up two, three questions that we have because we're
Okay,
reaching the closing time as well. So the
sure.
question is quite out of the box, very innovative question at that, which is asked by Arsh. He's asking, what should we do when the pros and the cons are equal?
That's a good question. And thank you for a question. I like your name also. Um, what do you do when the pros and cons are equal? Then I think what you do is what I do is I ask my dad. I go to my father then, and then I'm like, okay, this is the situation. What should I do? Because to me, my father is the wisest person that I know, and I know that he would advise me into the best possible direction, and I can never go wrong with trusting him. So I usually, personally, that's just what I do. But I think that if you do end up in a situation where pros and cons are the same and you really don't know what decision to make, then it's okay to have a discussion with like-minded individuals. You know, for me, my dad is a like-minded individual for myself because we have the same type of goals, we have the same type of things that we've set, values. So, you know, so I discuss it with him because I know that he would understand where I'm trying to go in life and which decision would help me propel towards my bigger goal in life, because everyone has certain goals. You have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, you know, 20-year plan, and I have those plans for myself. So I think the most important thing is then if you are at a standstill, you're stagnant, you have equal amounts of positives for both decisions and you don't know which way to go, then it's really important to have a discussion with like-minded people, whoever it is that you trust the most, and you know that they will uh, look at it from your best interest and what would be the most beneficial for you, and having an open discussion and dialogue with them, and then after that basing your decision of off of those two options, I think would be the best thing. You know, and again, I would really focus on, you know, where you want to be in 5 years and how that decision is going to impact you in 5 years. I left a job one time. I literally quit my job with the state because it was just too stressful. And I didn't even have another job. And I ended up applying to a part-time job. I thought it would be a good experience for me because I would get to be a trainer in mental health. I literally applied for the job. I got the job, and my first week, it was a part-time job, 20-hour job. My first week, the boss was like, "Oh, by the way, I just am moving this job and I'm making it full-time. Are you interested?" And I'm like, yeah. So it's just like this random decision I made because I was like, you know, I'm going to challenge myself. And that ended up being so fruitful for me. So sometimes it's good to challenge yourself and maybe pick things that may not be your usual normal and be a little bit more interesting. And who knows, you might um, end up in a more exciting situation. So
Right. Right. That was quite a balanced approach, I must say. And ma'am, I will be sharing a last question for the
sure.
session with you. And I apologize to all the parents and staffers and students because we are running short of time. And we promise to get back to you with another session very soon
Yeah, for
with
sure.
Ms. Nida. So we will be addressing your queries then. So the last question of the session is, what should we do when your inner sense makes you negative or give negative thoughts?
I think that happens to everyone, and everyone struggles with that, you know, no matter, you know, from people that you may think are like, you know, so strong and so successful, you know, celebrities, you know, rich people, poor people, parents, kids, teachers, doctors, anyone, everyone suffers from that when you are, you know, bombarded with these negative thoughts and you can't get rid of them. And I think that, you know, that's when you really need to utilize your coping skills. You know, talking to a therapist is always very beneficial as well. And I don't know any of the mental health resources, unfortunately, in your area, but I'm sure that the school can always provide you with resources that you could go to when you are having those struggles. But it's always very beneficial to talking to a therapist about it too, if it gets too out of hand. But you know, again, I would say that really reaching out to your friends is really huge. I have certain friends that, you know, when I get that internal clutter becomes so big that I cannot think straight and I can't come out of it, you know, I start thinking of being more pessimistic, and I'm thinking of life as glass half empty. Then I have certain people in my life that I always go to, because I know that they'll always give me the right, wisdom and the right confidence to move forward. So it's very important to surround yourself with positive people, because the positive people, their energy is going to rub off on you, and you will eventually become a positive person. So, you know, it's not just it is an internal struggle, but to be honest with you, very few people are able to come out of it on their own by working alone by themselves. You really have to reach out to your friends, your family, your community, and really, you know, utilize them, people who bring you joy. My niece and my nephew, my brother has 2 kids, and they bring me a lot of joy. So if I'm having a bad day, I'll call my brother and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to babysit them, and I'll take them out for movies, take them out to McDonald's or whatever it is. And that brings me so much happiness that, you know, so just doing little things like that that bring you happiness and surrounding yourself with positive people is the most important thing, because those people will get you out of that negativity, I promise you. So I think that's it. I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Now am I audible?
Yes, now I can
Yeah.
hear you.
So, ma'am, that was a wonderful session, and the parents, students, and staff of entire modern school is really grateful to you for your precious time, your valuable inputs, and the pearls of your wisdom. And we
Oh,
really look
thank you
forward
so
to
much.
associate with you in future as well. Thank
Of
you
course,
so
of
much.
course. Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. And I cannot wait to maybe come visit you guys one day. I haven't been to India. I forgot to mention, but my great grandfather is actually from Haryana. So I'm like dying to come and visit all those places. So who knows? Maybe I'll see you guys one day.
Our modern school is looking forward to host you and welcome you whenever is it
Yeah,
possible.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your time, and thank you to Modern School for this opportunity as well. So have a great night, and maybe I'll talk to you guys soon. All
Thank you
right.
so much, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.